hadn't been out to the property in years. Life got busy. The land was just sitting there, and frankly, I liked knowing it was untouched. 24 acres of old woods and stubborn dirt, mine since the day I signed the paperwork and bought it from a retired rancher who looked like he'd wrestled trees for a living. No one knew about it. No for sale signs, no Zillow listings, no development plans. I hadn't even told half my family I owned it, and yet, here I was, standing on what should have been a long-forgotten patch of overgrown brush only now. It looked like desperate housewives had exploded all over it. Paved roads, manicured lawns, cookie-cutter houses lined up like soldiers, waiting for inspection. Some still had that new paint plastic wrap around the porch railings. I counted 12 houses just in the first row, another 24 up the hill. Construction equipment parked beside an open lot. The smell of fresh asphalt still clung to the summer air. I had questions, several, and all of them started with what the hell. The mail had been weird lately. Water bills I never signed up for. A tax assessment from the county I almost tossed out until I noticed it mentioned Phase 2 construction. Even a glossy flyer from a place called Whisper Pines Homeowners Association welcoming me to the community. I figured it was a mix-up, junk mail, but curiosity and maybe a bit of a creeping sense of dread got the better of me, so I drove out, and now I was staring at 98 homes I counted later, built on land I legally owned. Like someone had played a sick game of Monopoly using my deed as a cheat code. Then she showed up. You know the type. Hair the color of bleached ambition, cut in a sharp, efficient bob. Golf cart with HOA decals on the side, clipboard, polo shirt tucked into capris, and a vibe like she'd filed noise complaints on her own children. She rolled up to me like she was the sheriff of this Stepford suburb. "Can I help you?" she asked, eyebrows raised, like I'd just tracked mud across her white carpet. "Yeah," I said, leaning on the hood of my truck. "I own this land." She let out a laugh. Not a kind laugh. The kind of laugh someone gives you when they think you're the idiot. "This is Whisper Pines," she said. "All of this has been purchased, rezoned, and permitted. You must be confused. Lady, I was this close to reaching into my glove box for the original title deed, just to slap it down on her clipboard. "I'm not confused," I said. "I never sold this land. I have the paperwork, the records, the taxes to prove it. You're building houses on my property." She gave me that tight-lipped smile that usually precedes someone saying, "Why don't we calm down?" She flipped a couple pages on her clipboard and then gestured vaguely toward the rows of houses. "Well, you'll have to take it up with the developer. I'm just with the right? Just the HOA." As if that gave her diplomatic immunity. "I'm sorry," I said, channeling every ounce of sarcasm I could summon. Did the HOA accidentally build a neighborhood on someone else's land? Or was this just felt like a kind of deal? She narrowed her eyes. "Sir, I don't appreciate your tone, and I don't appreciate people squatting on my acreage," I said. "But here we are." She started to say something else, but I was already walking away. I needed to see more, needed to figure out just how far this whole mess went. Every footstep across those pristine sidewalks felt like I was walking deeper into a Twilight Zone episode. Kids rode bikes past me, like it was just another summer afternoon. A couple waved from a porch. One man came out with a grill spatula and offered me a hot dog. "I'm good," I said, "just taking in the sights of my stolen land." He laughed, thought I was kidding. The whole thing was surreal, like someone had plopped a subdivision in the middle of my personal forest without so much as a courtesy call. No warnings, no emails. Just boom, instant suburb back in my truck. I pulled up the county website, dug through parcel maps, zoning records, development permits. My name was still on the title, still listed as sole owner, and yet there were construction permits approved under some LLC I'd never heard of. Green River Development Group. Sounded fake, smelled fake. By the time I got home, I had a migraine forming in my left temple, and 3 tabs open on real estate fraud. I started making calls, first to a real estate attorney, then to a title company. Every single one of them reacted the same way. They built how many homes? 98? On land you still own. Yep. There was a pause, always. A moment where they tried to wrap their heads around it. Because this wasn't a fence line dispute. This wasn't a neighbor whose garage nudged over the property line. This was industrial strength, nuclear-grade screw-up territory, or worse, someone had pulled something shady. Forged signatures, faked deeds, maybe a bribe, or 2, in the right county office. It happens more often than you'd think, and HOAs. They're not known for being shy once they've got a taste of power. Karen, because, yes, that's what I started calling her, was the type of person who'd bulldoze a hill just to make room for a mailbox kiosk, and probably consider it an improvement. She hadn't built the houses, no, but she was out here playing queen bee on land that wasn't hers, handing out rule books and HOA citations like she was the landlord of the universe. And me, I was about to become her worst nightmare. Because the one thing you don't do in life, no matter how powerful you think you are, no matter how many laminated maps and Excel sheets you've got, is build 98 houses on someone else's property. Especially not mine. Not without asking, not without paying, and definitely not without a fight. Karen didn't knock. She didn't call ahead. She showed up 3 days later in a golf cart, like it was a royal carriage, clipboard in hand, eyes squinting against the sun, like she was here to appraise the peasants. I was back on the property, this time with copies of my title deed, survey maps, and a headache that could kill a small animal. I'd come prepared to raise hell, or, at the very least, confusion. Karen, on the other hand, had come prepared to gaslight me into oblivion. "Good morning," she chirped, stepping out of the cart. "I understand there's been a misunderstanding." "Yeah," I said. "You built an entire neighborhood on land that doesn't belong to you. That's more than a misunderstanding. That's a felony in some zip codes." She smiled like she'd just caught a toddler finger painting on a wall. "Mr. Carter, correct?" "Correct," I said. "And I'm the legal owner of this entire tract of land. Still am, so I'm wondering how you managed to put 98 homes here without ever talking to me." Karen flipped through her clipboard like it was a spell book. "According to our records, this property was purchased by Green River Development last year. They provided zoning approvals, architectural plans, everything. We have permits from the county. Everything is in order." "Cool," I said. "Show me the deed transfer. The one where I sold this land." "I'll wait." She blinked, then gave a tight, little laugh. "I'm not the developer. I represent the Homeowners Association. If you have an issue, you should contact Green River, and you represent the homeowners, who now live on my land. So yeah, you and I have a pretty big issue." Karen didn't like that. Her lips pressed into a line so sharp it could cut glass. She turned her attention to the construction crews in the distance. Like maybe if she ignored me hard enough, I'd vanish into the trees. Here's the thing about people like Karen. They don't back down because they're right. They back down because someone makes them. And right now, she thought she still had the upper hand. She had sidewalks, streetlights, and a fresh HOA rulebook. I had paper documents and a stubborn attitude. But the tide was coming. "Look," she said finally, "this development has been in motion for over a year. Buyers have moved in. Families are settled. The HOA has rules, bylaws, and responsibilities. And none of that overrides ownership," I said. "You built a gated community on land that was never for sale." Karen didn't respond to that. Instead, she adjusted her sunglasses and scribbled something down on her clipboard, like she was writing me a citation for trespassing on my own property. I let her leave, because it wasn't just her I was dealing with anymore. The deeper I dug, the uglier it got. Green River Development was a real company, or at least it had a real website. Flashy, lots of drone footage, lots of buzzwords like sustainable design and eco-smart luxury living. But no phone number, no contact form. Just an address that turned out to be a strip mall in Orlando, with a vape shop and a place that sold discount wigs. Broughton, a real estate attorney named Gwen, who wore cowboy boots to court and had sued more developers than she could count. When I handed her the file, she flipped through it with the grim satisfaction of someone being handed fresh ammunition. They never had title, she said. None of this should have been approved. So how'd they do it? Fake deeds, probably. Shell, LLC, slid it through a county office with a rubber stamp and a distracted clerk. They count on landowners not paying attention. You're the exception. And I was. Most people would have missed it. I almost did. This land was off the radar, tucked away behind trees and back roads. Someone figured I'd never notice. They bet wrong. We filed a formal notice of ownership with the county and demanded a full title investigation. I sent cease and desist letters to Green River's mystery address and then directly to the HOA, just for fun. Karen got one too. I made sure it was printed on the nicest paper I had. A week later, the first homeowner knocked on my truck window. He was maybe mid-30s, wore khakis like he was born in them. Friendly enough. "Hey man, I heard a rumor going around the neighborhood. Something about you owning the land." I nodded. "It's not a rumor. It's a fact." His face did something complicated, like it was trying to laugh and panic at the same time. "So what does that mean for us?" "It means you bought a house on property that wasn't legally for sale." He rubbed the back of his neck. "But we bought through a realtor, got the mortgage approved. The bank signed off. Your paperwork's probably clean," I said. "But the land wasn't. Title's still under my name. I never transferred it, so technically, every home here is sitting on land you don't own." He swallowed hard. "So can you. I mean, are you going to?" "Evict you," I said. "Not today, but I've got lawyers, and they're very interested in what happens next." He walked off looking like he was going to cancel his lawn service and call his insurance agent all in the same breath. The rumor spread fast after that. People started watching me whenever I was on the property, whispering behind freshly installed fences. I saw a Facebook post in the local community group titled, "Who Really Owns Whisper Pines?" complete with a blurry photo of me, standing next to my truck, looking like a cryptid. Karen doubled down. She called an emergency HOA meeting and passed out letters claiming I was a scam artist trying to extort homeowners with a fraudulent land claim. One resident sent me a photo of the letter with a note that read, "She really thinks she can bluff the deed out of you." It would have been funny if it wasn't so outrageous, and if I wasn't holding the real deed in my hands. I'll give Karen this, she had guts. Just not enough brains to match them. She could throw her clipboard at me all day long. But here's what she couldn't change. The law was on my side. The land was mine, and every inch they built on. That was leverage. I wasn't out for revenge. But I wasn't backing down either. Not when someone decided they could erase me with a few bad signatures and a concrete foundation. They wanted to pretend I didn't exist. Big mistake. I was just getting started. The day the legal gears started turning was the day I stopped being that angry guy in the truck and became the landowner with a lawyer. Trust me, it makes a difference. People stop looking at you like you're crazy and start wondering if they should reread their mortgage paperwork. Gwen, my boots-wearing, no BS real estate attorney, didn't waste time. She marched into the county recorder's office like she owned the building and came out 2 hours later with half the staff questioning their life choices. "Your name is still on everything," she told me, slapping a fat manila folder onto my table like it owed her money. Title, tax records, original survey maps. There's no deed transfer. There's no sale. As far as the law's concerned, you still own the land and everyone else is just squatting with better landscaping. I stared at the stack of documents. So what happened? How did this get approved? She pulled out a single sheet, a copy of a deed supposedly transferring the land to Green River Development. This, she said, is the smoking gun. It's also a steaming pile of forgery. It had my name, my supposed signature, a notary stamp, and none of it was real. Look at this, she pointed. They spelled your name right, but got the middle initial wrong, and the notary ID belongs to a woman who died in 2019. They used a dead notary. This is amateur hour. It was both infuriating and almost impressive in its boldness. Someone had gone to great lengths to fake their way into a multi-million-dollar development. The paper trail looked real enough to slip past a busy county clerk and just fake enough to blow up spectacularly once anyone started asking questions, which we were about to do. Loudly we filed an official dispute with the county recorder's office, then followed it up with a request for immediate suspension of all permits related to Whisper Pines. Gwen also contacted the local utility companies to flag the addresses as being part of a legal ownership dispute, which was a fancy way of saying, don't install anything else until we figure out who actually owns the ground your pipes are buried in. Meanwhile, I started documenting everything. Every house, every mailbox, every slab of concrete. I walked the entire property line with a GoPro strapped to my chest and a drone buzzing overhead like I was filming a weird DIY nature documentary. I had maps, I had timestamps, I had video proof that the neighborhood had sprung up like weeds on land that legally, physically, spiritually still belonged to me, and through all of it, Karen kept playing Queen of the Cull-D-Sack. She held weekly HOA meetings where she reassured homeowners that everything was being handled. I got my hands on one of the meeting recordings, thanks to a sympathetic resident who didn't like being lied to. She's just some crank with a fake deed, Karen told the room, waving a printout of my cease and desist like it was toilet paper. We're working with Green River to clear up the confusion. The HOA has legal counsel. You're all protected. Spoiler, they were not protected. Green River had vanished completely. Their phone numbers went to voicemail. Their website was suddenly under maintenance. Their listed address now had a handwritten sign on the door that said, out of business. All questions referred to legal. Except there was no legal. Just a P.O. box in Tampa and a trail of bad development deals scattered across 3 counties. Gwen found 2 other cases where Green River had tried similar stunts. One, where they started clearing trees on private land, and another where they poured a foundation on a site they didn't fully own. Both ended in lawsuits. Neither involved a full-blown subdivision. We were dealing with professional-level grifters, the kind who build fast, sell faster, and vanish before the concrete dries. Which meant Karen and her HOA were sitting on a ticking bomb, and the only person with a working clock was me. Now, I didn't want to screw over the homeowners. Most of them had no idea any of this was happening. They thought they'd bought a safe little house in a safe little neighborhood with safe little bylaws about lawn height and trash bins. They didn't know they were living on stolen dirt. But the law doesn't care about your Zillow listing. Ownership is ownership, and right now, every single home was built without my consent, my signature, or my damn knowledge. Once the county got involved, things went nuclear. They froze all further development on the site. The remaining 10 houses under construction, work halted. Contractors were pulled off the job. Trucks drove off with half-unloaded pallets of drywall. One guy left a wheelbarrow full of wet cement in the middle of a future driveway. The HOA newsletter tried to spin it as temporary delays due to permitting logistics, but people weren't buying it anymore, especially when the local news caught wind. Somehow, and by somehow, I mean a friend of Gwen's who owed her a favor. A reporter showed up with a camera crew and a big dumb smile. Sir, can you tell us what it's like to discover an entire neighborhood was built on your land? Like waking up and finding someone built a mall in your backyard, I said. Only instead of food courts, I got HOA fees and a woman named Karen yelling about trash cans. The segment aired that night and went viral by morning. Headline: Man finds 98 houses built on his property without permission. I got calls. So many calls. Some were from lawyers. Some were from homeowners begging for answers. One woman asked if I was planning to bulldoze the neighborhood. Another offered to buy her lot directly from me. It was chaos. But controlled chaos, the kind that works in your favor if you play it right. Gwen was already working on the next step, filing a quiet title lawsuit to formally establish me as the sole legal owner of the land and void any fraudulent transfers. It wasn't quick, but it was clean, and once the judge signed off on it, there'd be no question who owned what. Karen, though, wasn't giving up. She doubled down again, sent out a new HOA letter accusing me of harassment, trespassing, and intentional disruption of a peaceful community. She posted a notice on the community board warning residents not to speak with me without legal counsel present. I laughed so hard I nearly drove off the road. Because here's the irony. I wasn't the trespasser. She was. All of them were, and every attempt she made to paint me as the villain only made her look more unhinged. The residents were catching on too. Some started coming to me directly, not yelling, not panicking, just ... confused, tired, wanting answers. A dad with 2 toddlers in tow asked me if there was a way to make this go away quietly. A retired couple showed up with a homemade pie and said, "We're sorry, we didn't know." One guy offered to pay rent, like I was his new landlord. I didn't know what to say to that. Not yet, because legally, it wasn't out of the question. Every inch of that development sat on land I owned. I could lease it, sell it, sue them, evict them, bulldoze it, if I really wanted to get dramatic. But I wasn't there yet. I didn't want to punish the innocent. I wanted the people responsible to burn Green River, the fraudsters, the permit pushers, and Karen, who, at this point, had essentially staged a suburban coup and declared herself queen of my domain. The last straw came when I returned to the property one evening and found a nitrogen monoxide trespassing sign nailed to a tree. My tree, on my land. The HOA had put it up. The fine print said by order of the Whisper Pines Homeowners Association. I took it down, tossed it in the back of my truck. Then I pulled out a Sharpie and wrote across it in big block letters, "I own this tree." Then I nailed it right back where they had it. A week later, the county sent an investigator to walk the site. He met me by the old stream near the edge of the development, looked around at the rows of houses, shook his head, and said, "This is gonna be a mess." I smiled. "Yeah, but at least it's my mess." He chuckled. "Good luck, Mr. Carter. You're going to make a lot of people very nervous." I already had, and I was just getting started. I knew things were about to get messy when Karen stopped smiling. Gone were the tight, performative grins and overly chirpy greetings. She didn't wave from her golf cart anymore. She didn't stomp over with her clipboard pretending to enforce policy. Instead, she watched me from a distance, arms crossed, lips pursed, like someone who just found out her dog might actually belong to the neighbor, because now it was official. The county had slapped a giant legal pause button on Whisper Pines. The permits were frozen, Green River had ghosted, and I was no longer just the cranky guy who kept showing up with paperwork. I was the landowner with the law behind me. And let me tell you, once the tide started turning, it didn't just ripple. It crashed. The first real crack showed up in the form of a U-Haul. One of the homeowners, a young couple, newly married, probably thought they were getting in on the American dream, just up and moved out, quietly, no big fight, no drama, just packed their stuff and disappeared. I don't blame them. I'd do the same if I found out my mortgage was built on a lie. Karen tried to control the narrative, of course. She sent out a community-wide email that basically amounted to, "We are experiencing temporary turbulence. Please remain calm. Like she was the captain of a plane that had just lost both engines. Mid-flight. People weren't calm. The HOA Facebook group exploded. Posts vanished just as fast as they went up. Someone even started a Whisper Pines subreddit, which included blurry drone photos, conspiracy theories, and a Photoshop of me as Thanos, snapping away the subdivision. Hilarious and weirdly flattering. But while the memes were flying, so were the subpoenas. Gwen was relentless. She filed everything we needed to lock down the land legally, and then some. Meanwhile, the county launched an internal investigation into how Green River's permits were ever approved in the first place. A couple building inspectors suddenly took early retirement. A zoning clerk stopped returning calls. It was like flipping on the lights and watching the roaches scatter. But the most unexpected twist. Some of the residents started siding with me. One guy I think, invited me over for coffee. He said he'd read all the court filings, double-checked the land title, and realized Karen had been lying through her perfectly whitened teeth. "We thought you were some scammer at first," he admitted, stirring his coffee. "But you're the only one who's told us the truth." "Truth's not real popular in HOA newsletters," I said. He grinned. "You should see the latest one. Karen accused you of sabotaging property values and trying to seize control of the neighborhood." "She's not entirely wrong," I said, sipping from my mug. "But I'm just seizing back what's already mine." It wasn't just Dan. More homeowners started reaching out, some looking for options, others just wanting to vent. A few even offered to pay me directly for the land under their homes. It was surreal. I had accidentally become the unofficial mayor of a town that legally didn't exist. I'd walk the streets, my streets, and get nods, waves, the occasional whispered good luck, like I was the protagonist in some legal thriller none of us signed up for. But not everyone took it well. One evening, I found a dead squirrel nailed to my fence post with a note that said "Go away," written in glittered gel pen, no less, which somehow made it worse. I wasn't going anywhere. By now, the media had circled back around. A second news crew showed up, this time with a drone and a lawyer in tow. They did a full expose, talked to Gwen, interviewed county officials, even tried to get a comment from Karen. She declined, publicly, but not before being spotted storming into the county office 2 days later with a man in a suit and a stack of folders she slammed on a desk like a courtroom. Drama extra. But here's the part she didn't want on the news. The court had already ruled in my favor. Gwen got the quiet title judgment we needed, signed, sealed, and filed. I was now, without a single shadow of legal doubt, the uncontested owner of every square foot of land Whisper Pines sat on, legally speaking. Every single house, every swing set, every carefully manicured shrub. All of it was squatting. I was holding a royal flush. Karen had a pair of threes and a bad attitude. We drafted a formal notice to the HOA and every homeowner. It explained the situation in plain, calm language. I wasn't there to destroy the neighborhood. I wasn't there to ruin anyone's life. But facts were facts. The development sat on land that was never legally transferred. And now, everyone involved had to come to the table whether they liked it or not. Cue panic. Half the HOA tried to call an emergency vote to oust Karen. The other half insisted she had done nothing wrong. One guy tried to start a GoFundMe to buy the land back, but it fizzled when people realized the number he'd set was $7 million. Offers started pouring in from developers, lawyers, even a couple shady dudes in luxury cars who claimed to represent interested investors and handed me business cards that smelled like cigar smoke and cologne. One of them offered to buy the whole neighborhood in cash. "You could walk away today," he said, smiling like a guy used to getting yeses. "Name your price." I didn't even blink. "It's not about the money." He nodded slowly. "It never is, until it is." He wasn't wrong. I was starting to think about that too. See, when you own something, really own it or not, just sitting on dirt, you're sitting on power, on choices. You can bulldoze the whole thing and turn it into a nature preserve, or sell off lots one by one, or lease the land back to the homeowners at a premium. Hell, you could build a statue of yourself in the cul-de-sac, and no one could stop you. But I didn't want revenge, not really. I wanted accountability, and Karen. She wasn't interested in being accountable. Instead of facing the facts, she doubled down against tried to file an injunction against me, claiming I was creating emotional distress for the residents. Gwen laughed so hard she nearly choked on her sandwich. The judge dismissed it in 5 minutes. Karen didn't even show up in person. That same week, the Whisper Pines HOA officially voted to remove her as president. The final count wasn't even close. I didn't go to the vote. I didn't have to. I was on my land, watching the sun go down behind the houses. Someone else thought they could hide from me. Walking the old paths where I used to hike before they paved them into sidewalks. Running my fingers along fences I never approved. Standing on soil that answered to me and me alone. Funny how power works. It doesn't always look like flashing lights or loud voices. Sometimes it's just a quiet piece of paper with your name on it and a boundary line no one else paid attention to. But I did, and now, so does everyone else. There's a strange kind of quiet that settles over a place once everyone knows exactly who's in charge. Not the loud, angry kind. Not courtroom gavel slams or shouted HOA meetings. Just a stillness. A shift in gravity. I felt it the day the final judgment came through. Stamped. Sealed. Mine. The land. Every square inch of it, legally confirmed as belonging to me. Whisper Pines wasn't just built without permission. It was built on borrowed time, and that clock had officially run out. Funny thing is, once the dust settled and people stopped pretending otherwise, everything got easier, calmer. Even Karen. Though let's be honest, she didn't go quietly. The HOA removed her, sure, but not before she tried one last stunt. A tearful letter sent to every resident, accusing me of destroying her life's work and threatening to sue for emotional damages and defamation. Gwen framed it. It's hanging in her office now, right next to her law degree. But I didn't sue her. I didn't press charges. What would be the point? She wasn't the real problem, just the loudest symptom. The truth is, I wasn't interested in punishment anymore. I'd won. The war was over. Now came the cleanup. I met with the new, freshly restructured HOA board. Nice people, for the most part. Nervous, polite, asking the kind of questions you only ask when you're stuck in a situation you didn't sign up for. So, what happens now? One of them asked, adjusting his glasses like they might help him see into the future. I laid it out clean. They could buy the land. Not individually, most couldn't afford that, but as a group, a cooperative purchase. Fair market value. I wasn't going to gouge anyone, but I wasn't giving it away either. Option 2, ground leases. They could stay long-term, legally, and pay a reasonable monthly fee for the land under their homes. Their houses were still theirs, but the earth beneath, that would remain mine. Option 3, bulldozers. But no one wanted that. Not even me. A few homeowners pushed back at first. One guy tried the whole, "I've lived here for 6 months. I have right" speech. I nodded, let him finish. Then I handed him a copy of the title with my name on it, and told him, politely, that rights don't grow out of denial. Most were reasonable. Some even apologized. And slowly, deals got made. Contracts signed, payments arranged. A real estate firm helped handle the logistics, and before long, Whisper Pines started to feel less like a rogue operation, and more like a weird, bruised community, learning how to start over. I never expected any of this. When I bought that land, it was just supposed to be mine. A quiet spot, off the radar. No plans, no subdivisions, no HOA newsletters. I didn't want to be anyone's landlord, or hero, or viral headline. But when someone builds on what's yours without asking, you've got two choices. Let it go, or show them why that was a mistake. I showed them. Developers came out of the woodwork with offers. Some wanted to buy everything outright, bundle it all up and slap a new name on it. Whisper Pines Estates, one suggested. Another offered to rebrand the neighborhood entirely and make it part of a retirement golf community. No thanks. This land earned its scars. It didn't need a facelift. It needed people who respected it, and the line between ownership and ambition. A few months after the dust settled, I walked the property at sunset, same way I used to, back before the houses, before the sidewalks and fences. I passed the old stream, now boxed in by culverts and landscaping, but still there, still flowing. I paused by a house near the edge of the development, where a kid was tossing a basketball against the garage. He saw me, stopped, and waved. I waved back. You'd think I'd feel bitter. You'd think I'd look at these rows of homes and only see the invasion, the nerve, the betrayal. But I didn't. I saw survival. Not just mine, but the land's. It had been taken, twisted, paved over, without permission, and still, it stood. Still mine, still rooted in something real. And now, everyone standing on it knew it too. That matters. Ownership isn't just paperwork. It's responsibility. It's knowing where the lines are and respecting the ones that matter. Karen didn't get that. Green River definitely didn't. But now, a whole community does. I reached the top of the hill, looked out over the roofs and driveways, the slow-moving cars and late summer porch lights blinking on. The neighborhood was quiet, not gone, not destroyed, just different, and I smiled, because sometimes justice doesn't come with a bang. Sometimes it comes 1 inch at a time. I stood there for a long while, hands in my pockets, the wind rustling through the trees behind me. And then, just loud enough for myself and the dirt under my boots to hear, I said, "Next time, ask before you build." And then I went home.